What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Thank you so much for joining me. I have something not new on the table, but interesting just the same. I recently, in fact, the video that will populate before this one is for the Artisan Tomahawk, and it got me interested in cleaver blades again, and so I started looking around for budget options. Poked around on Amazon and I found this. This is the Ganzo FH81. And what an interesting knife this is. It is D2. It is running on bearings. It is G10 with steel liners, which are milled out a little bit on this side. It has a stamped steel clip. It's a liner lock, as you can see, and we're locked up very early. We're locked up at about 25%, but it's plenty tight. It has a really funny thumb disc deployment apparatus as well as a flipper tab, but look at the blade on that. It's just interesting. It really is. There's some milling in the G10, gives it a little bit of texture. The FH series from Ganzo is probably one of my favorite budget friendly, I know budget implies somehow bad, so budget friendly bunch of knives you can get out there in the world, and I just had never had this one. It's not perfect. What do I mean by that? Well, the deployment thumb disc thing is, oh, by the way, you can wave this out in the pocket. It's designed when you pull out of the pocket, you can wave it, which is really nice. But that means that it's in the cutting path. Now, it's thin. It's not super fat or anything, and yet it's still a little bit in the cutting path, but hey, whatever. Now, there is a review from LTK on one of these from a while back. This is just screwed on with a screw. You can take that out, but there's a divot and it's not very attractive. So kind of has to stay there. Is it a deal breaker? No, absolutely not. For $27 or $28, whatever this thing costs, you get a lot of comfort. You get a nice, beautifully done D2 blade. You get an interesting design. The way that the front of this is done with this cut, it's plenty pokey, in case you need to do such a thing. And it's very slicey. It comes to a really nice edge. Ganzo's good at that. Now, a lot of you who have not watched my channel a bunch are sitting there thinking, Ganzo, blah, 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 whatever. Look, I'm all about reviewing knives that are good for the dollar value, because despite what a lot of people in the knife community think, not everybody can spend $200 on a knife all the time. So 26, 27, 28, 30 bucks, 40 bucks is a perfectly excellent place to live in the knife collecting world. And you get cool, interesting stuff like this. Let's get some specs out of the way. You get just shy of 3 inches of cutting on 3 3/4 inches of D2. Now, they have given up a lot for this forward choil, but it is really comfortable that way. There's plenty of belly. Right, it gets down on the board well before the rest of the knife. You can do lots of good, cuts this way with this knife. It works really well. It's also really good for push cuts because of this. Right, you get it into the nice and pokey, so you go into the material of cutting and you can push right along. I have done all of my basic cutting with this: seatbelt material, rubber tubing, paracord, you name it, and their D2 holds a really nice edge. And it is D2. LTK has tested a whole bunch of these Ganzos, and they come back as what they're supposed to be. Now, I mentioned the stamped steel clip. It is deep carry, although they don't have flush-mounted screws, so there's a little bit of resistance up here at the top of the clip if you're wearing particularly thick jeans. Let's go ahead and look at the grip area. We're going to do it in 2 ways. We're going to do it from behind the flipper tab, right, which is 3 3. It comes to just shy of 4 inches because of this big curve. You get 3 3/4 really comfortably. But if you add in that forward choil, you get 5 inches of grip. So any size hand is going to be just fine on this. Now, I do want to point out that if you're going to use this forward choil, it's really steep right here. This is very steep. So this edge comes back towards your finger, and you're going to want to watch that, right? If you have big fingers like mine, you can nick yourself on that, so just keep an eye on it. The knife itself, I actually nicked myself on it just now. From end to end is a full 8 inches, which is a good size knife, and the closed length on this guy is 4.5. It's actually pretty thin in the pocket. What are we coming in at? We're coming in at about 1.5 inches if we include the swell here at the tip of the blade and the flipper tab. Now, if we add the flipper tab, yeah, we're at 1.5 inches. So it doesn't eat up a ton of pocket, and it's very comfortable in the pocket. It's got a nice G10 backspacer, right? And of course the steel liners. And I think it just looks very, very cool. I got myself pretty good. Huh. I'm going to say it again. If you have big fingers like mine and you're going to use that choil, you're going to want to watch that edge right there. Because, yeah. Let's do some size comparisons, just because that's what we do. Here it is against the full-size Rat Model 1. And as you can see, it is considerably smaller than the Rat 1. Here it is against the Rat 2. And it is bigger than the Rat 2. Now, the Rat 2 is one of those knives that I can't use. The forced choil here and the shape of the handle is just, I mean, it's a 3-finger knife for me, and nowhere I hold this knife is comfortable. The Rat 1 is comfortable because it's so much bigger. Excuse me. But the FH81 here is more comfortable than both in hand. And their D2 is better than the Ontario's Os 8, for sure. Now, you can get the Rats in D2, but then they cost upwards of $50. So you give up that kind of budget excellence. You know, it's a choice you'd have to make. Where is it? I saw it. There it is. Here it is against the Mini Presidio 2, which is a really good stand-in for the bug out. I'm not quite sure where my bug out is right now. And we'll go ahead and do the full-size Presidio as well, just for the sense of symmetry. The FH81 comes in nicely in between all of these. It's pretty close to bug out length, right? Stuff like this makes me happy. The fact that you can drop $27 or $28, whatever it is, and end up with a well-made, nice cutter in a cool and interesting design, I think it's really worth your time and attention. And again, this is not new, but they are out there on Amazon, which is nice. One of the nice things about Ganzo is they do tend to release their knives for a long time, so there's no FOMO. If there's a Ganzo out there that you like, and it's 2 years old, or 5 years old, or 2 days old, you'll probably be able to get one. Let's go ahead and weigh it. If my scale will turn on. Hello. Oh, come on now. There we go. Yeah, 4.6 ounces. It's not a super lightweight knife, but it is not uber heavy either. For an 8-inch blade, that's not too bad. I do want to point out that because it's a liner lock, they didn't really, I mean, you can see the liner, right? You can get to it up here at the top, but they could have done a little more of a cutout because it's very smooth, right? So you do have to dig your thumb in just a little bit to get to it. Just a thought, something to keep in mind. Now, I think it's about 3.5 millimeters of D2, but let's find out if I'm right or wrong. 3.5, yeah, 3.5 millimeters of D2. So you get a nice slice. Because it is a nice, really, like the flats up here, it's got a nice long drop down to the belly. It really does come down to a lovely edge. This is a surprisingly, well, okay, it's not a surprisingly good knife. The Ganzo FH series is one of my all-time favorite budget-friendly knife collections. This knife is no different. If you're looking for, and I'll post the link to this on Amazon. If you guys are looking for a reasonably priced and yet interesting knife, something that's not like everything else, something that not everybody else is going to be carrying, the FH81 here is probably a great way to go. I know that I'm glad I picked one up. I can't wait to see what Women Carry Knives thinks of this when she does her review down the road. I'm sure we'll have some different thoughts on it. In the meantime, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this or any of my knives, feel free to ask in the comments. We'll see you next time.